I'm here back in Louisburgh, very familiar grounds to be standing on. It kind of feels like a home from home, a place where we have over a period of 36, 37 years done the Famine Walk whenever at all possible. 1 year after retirement, I felt that this was an appropriate thing to do. Cycling that route appealed to me. It's a very profound place and has very profound significance. We have marked that reality over many years. Certainly, I suppose, for people who are maybe unable to walk or people for whom cycling is their thing, it's a particularly appropriate and unique kind of experience to do this. The place for me is jam-packed with memories and associations to do with extraordinary people and extraordinary events and extraordinary moments over the years. And the underlying reality is the original Famine Walk of 1849, when people gathered here in this very town, thought they were going to be given food or admission to the workhouse, but then were told without explanation that they had to go to Delphi Lodge. Now, I'm sure I'll find the cycle to Delphi Lodge difficult enough in the conditions today, but this was people who were starving, who were weak, and for whom this was their last hope. It was a journey of hope which ended in despair, because they were refused either food or admission to the workhouse, and they were turned away. And that's when many, we don't know how many, died on this road between here and Delphi Lodge. So it has very profound significance, and I believe somehow that the landscape here, it holds the memory of those people. Their story is inscribed in the landscape. In 1995, among the walk leaders were Brendan Forde and the Maya people from Guatemala. I remember the Maya people speaking in their language, and their voices were echoing back off the mountains. And Brendan Forde was translating for them. He was their friend. They appreciated the significance of the place that they were, and they said that when they were walking this road, they were walking with the spirits of our ancestors. It's appropriate to remember that experience of the people who walked here in 1849, of all the people who walked on roads throughout that period of An Gorta Mór. But also then for us, the really important thing is to walk in remembrance, in solidarity, and as a sign of resistance to the oppression that so many people live under. It's about the past, but it's about the present, and also it's about the future. Today, on the first stage of the walk, I'm remembering obviously the people who died on this route, the people who died during An Gorta Mór, people who are dying of starvation today in Palestine and in Sudan and in so many places around the world, and particularly horrifically in Gaza, where people are being deliberately starved as part of a genocide. So that's at the core of what we've always done on this walk and what I am doing on this cycle. I'm also thinking today particularly of a really good friend, Brendan Forde, who died 2 years ago and who led the walk on 2 occasions and whose life was remarkable. He worked in Latin America all of his life, and he always chose to work in the most difficult places where nobody would go. His philosophy was that his mission, if you like, was to walk with people who were under threat or in danger. So in other words, he went to places where nobody else would go, and he'd literally walk with people if they needed to go to a hospital or they needed to go to a doctor, and in places where military governments were in place and people's lives literally weren't safe. So he walked in solidarity with them. There are 2 films made about them. One of them is called The Walking Priest, and the other is called Friar in Blue Jeans. And when he led the walk in 1995, he said, "Along the route, we stop at the monument which records what happened during An Gorta Mór. But to record should not just mean to write something down. To record comes from the Latin recordus, to pass through the heart again. For it serves very little to be intellectually aware of what happened 150 years ago, or what continues to happen today. There is the danger that we convert people into statistics. The 1 million people who died were women, children and men whose hopes and dreams died with them. And there are those who survived and those whose lives were ripped apart forever. The media shows us images of starving people, but we don't know their names. It is important that we let them pass through our hearts again." I'm remembering people who are great friends of mine, people who are very key to Afri's history and the developing and the philosophy of Afri. Tom Hyland will be tomorrow, and then the following day I will remember Sonny Jacobs, and then finally the last day we'll remember Desmond Tutu, This is the Glenkeen River here, and it's mentioned in the first report about that walk that people fell into the Glenkeen River and many were drowned at this point here. This is the remnant of that history. The water is still flowing, and maybe that gives us hope for the future, that the river of life keeps flowing, and that the time will come when the forces of war and oppression will be overcome, and a time of peace and respect for people and the planet will prevail.